Is zero ping about to be removed from Fortnite? Let's get straight into the discussion. Now, this all started after a tweet from Jacob where he discussed the idea of having a minimum ping where zero ping would cease to exist and the lowest possible ping would be 30, and this would be to create a more balanced playing field. If for any reason you don't know, ping is the time it takes from when you press a button in game to when you actually get a response. So if you have zero ping, there will be no delay between your actions. If you shoot your gun, it will shoot instantly. Whereas if you're on 30 ping, there will be a slight delay. It's nothing that's completely major, but when compared to zero, when you're playing at the top level, it is noticeable. Now, this is definitely an interesting idea, and it's certainly something that has garnered a lot of support in the community. A couple of things to mention up front. Firstly, we have no confirmation that Epic is officially testing this, despite what a lot of people are reporting. Yes, we know that Evan, who is one of the top developers at Epic before he was laid off, did say that he was working on this, so this has actually been in the works officially, but it doesn't mean that they are testing it right now. They of course put on a special eval cup the other day just for NA Central because they said they had some stuff they needed to test for the Summit LAN, and during this event players' ping was all over the place. So by all means they could have been testing a ping cap, but it could also have been a lot of other things. And in fact, we do now know that the reason why players were on such high ping for this eval cup was because Epic were testing their new LAN servers, so it had nothing to do with balancing everyone's ping. Now listen, I do think there are pros and cons to having minimum ping. Let's start with the pros. Now, this will definitely create a more level playing field. There won't be as much reliance on living in the right area, moving to places like Dallas, to Germany, just to have zero ping. If that's something that you can't afford, if that's something that's not viable to you as a pro because of something like your age, then that's no longer a problem. You can play on 30 ping from your home and you'll no longer be at a big disadvantage when compared to the best pros. So that is an aspect that I do genuinely like. I mean, it's also good that players aren't forced to live in these specific places like Dallas, like Frankfurt. They can move to other areas, and that could be seen as a positive. I will say that I do quite like the pros being concentrated in one area. From a content perspective, it does make a lot of sense. I can definitely appreciate that there could be benefits to a minimum ping cap, but it's not something I'm going to endorse, and here's why. For me, there's going to be no difference as to which big pros perform on 30 ping as when compared to zero. It's just going to be the same names. If you're good on zero, you will be good on 30. That's going to be the blanket rule. So this change won't make any difference at the top. It's still going to be the same players that will dominate. The issue I have here is that we're limiting the skill ceiling by removing zero ping. Yes, top pros can still be good on 30 ping. Yes, that's still very playable, but you can't fight as fluidly without zero ping. And at the end of the day, people watch the top pros because they want to see someone playing at the highest level possible. And if we remove zero ping, then we are limiting what pros can do. We are lowering the skill ceiling. And to see the difference that zero ping can actually make, you can take players like Focus, who was previously playing on 60 ping, and whilst he was a good pro in EU, he certainly was not regarded as one of the top players. Now he is undoubtedly a tier 1 pro, genuinely in my opinion one of the best players in the world, and his fighting, his leading, everything has gone to a completely new level since moving to Germany and going to zero ping. I mean, in the past we've seen this with other players. You had Peterspot when he was playing on 50 ping when he stayed in New York after the servers moved to Dallas, and then when he finally did move to Dallas, we saw a huge upturn in his performances. Don't underestimate the power of zero ping. It is incredibly strong and it does make pros very good. However, if you weren't that good on high ping, you're not going to magically improve on zero. We are talking about the top players in the world here, and that is where the difference is made. Zero ping is a huge factor at the top level of the game, where we're talking about tiny details that separate the best pros. But for the average player, if you're not that good on 40 ping, it's not going to make too much difference if you go to zero. And this ties to my overall point quite nicely. Yes, this change could be good for the average player. Yes, it would be nice to have a level playing field, but it will reduce the quality at the very top of the game. We simply won't be able to see pros doing the crazy things they do if zero ping is removed. And to me, that just feels like a shame. I can see a world in which this change gets implemented and then all pros do is reminisce on the old zero ping era and how fun the game used to be, and they'll complain about how much worse the game feels on 30 ping, and then the community will hear that and they'll agree too, and then all of a sudden the change is pretty unpopular. If you are someone that plays on high ping, then I can appreciate that you'd be happy with this change. You're no longer going to get your walls taken as much. It's going to be a lot easier for you. However, I am wary of the fact that this isn't really improving the game too much. The people that are on high ping are all still on high ping. We're not actually changing their situation. We're just making it worse for the players that are already on zero. And because of that, it does still feel like a negative solution, which is something that does concern me. There are more positive solutions to the issue of ping discrepancy. Firstly, simply host more LAN events. I know that's kind of an unrealistic thing to say, and of course it is a lot easier easier said than done, but it would solve the issue because everyone would be on the same ping. The other thing I'd like to see back is NA East. The population distribution in the US means that it makes no sense to have NA Central. The whole idea of it initially was that it was NA West and NA East merged. Now that we have NA West back, it makes no sense having Central and West. We need to go back to having East and West. This will allow more players to have low ping. It will mean that a minimum ping change isn't even needed, and it should just make more sense for the esport. For sure, ping discrepancy isn't a perfect system. There's definitely a lot of criticisms you can make about it, but I do think it's a necessary evil in order for the top pros to play at the peak of their ability. And it's a system that we've had since Fortnite began back in 2017, and I really don't see the need to change that all the way in 2026. We've gotten on just fine with it, and I don't think it's something that needs to shift. Now, there's also been conversation about how this has been implemented in other esports and it's been successful there, and I just don't think you can really compare Fortnite to a lot of other FPS titles purely because the building mechanic is so unique, and with stuff like taking walls, ping is so important. You just can't compare it to any other game. One thing that's gone a little bit under the radar during this whole debate is that if we implemented a ping cap, it's possible that that would be present at LAN events too. That's right, if this did happen, there's a chance that LANs may no longer be zero ping. At least that's what Evan was saying in this tweet. He stated that it would be too jarring to be switching back to zero if everyone got used to 30, so it would make more sense to play the LANs on the higher ping, which is something that, whilst I can understand that logic, whilst it does make a lot of sense, I don't personally agree with it. I feel like we should be endeavouring to make the game as good as possible, and if there is an option to play it on zero ping with the least possible delay, then I think we should be taking that every single tournament. Now, if you're wondering what the pros think about this situation, there's definitely a mix of opinions. Clicks is someone who was initially opposed to the change, but a day after he said this on stream.
I've really thought about this ping decision, and I'm gonna be honest, I think it's actually a good idea, and I think more players would play the game and try to compete, facts or cap. But I don't think it would make a difference in people going pro. I think a lot of people are gonna understand that if this happens. All the current pros are still gonna be pros. There's not gonna be random people just come up from the dark and all the whole pro scene is cooked because everyone has the same ping now. It's like, no, like the truth is ping matters, but if you're not good on 30 ping, then you wouldn't be good on 0 ping. End of story. Like that is really the truth, bro.
I can definitely appreciate this viewpoint, and it's fair to say that Clicks won't be the only pro who will be happy to move out of Dallas. As you can see from looking through these tweets, there are a ton of other pros that agree, most of them being the ones that do play on high ping, but there's also a lot of pros that will oppose these changes. We had Reese Hub tweet that if they cap ping, it should be around 15 rather than 30, which I could see as a more palatable solution. However, if you want my genuine opinion, I am just not in favor of the ping cap. I can appreciate that it would come with some genuine benefits, and it would certainly be interesting to see it tested out. It's just not something that I'm supporting at this moment in time. Subscribe to stay up to date with European Fortnite news. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.